I was tightening a loose hinge on my fence when a posted notice slapped against the wood, and the Karen next door claimed my boundary violated community symmetry. She marched up the driveway, waving some HOA sheet she'd filed that morning, acting like she owned every mailbox and porch on the block. So I pulled out the county plat, the real one, and laid it across the hood of my truck, watching her face crack the moment the lines didn't match. "You don't cross my line," I said. Finally, someone fought back. The first thing I hear is the clank heavy metal biting into the rim of my work trailer. I step out onto the damp driveway. Coffee thermos still warm in my hand, and see a tow driver looping a chain around the axle like he owns the place. "Morning," he says without meeting my eyes. He hands me a sheet paper stiff from the cold. HOA removal order. Signed by President Marlene Corbett. Enforcement Directive tow immediately. I stare at the header twice just to make sure I'm awake. "I'm not in your HOA," I say. He shrugs, like that detail doesn't matter. Behind him, a silver SUV with the HOA logo idles at the curb, exhaust drifting through the morning mist. Marlene stands beside it with a clipboard, her phone pressed to her ear. "Proceed," she whispers. "I'll document later." I walk toward her. "You don't have jurisdiction over my property." She lowers the phone slowly, giving me a smile that's polite on the surface and sharp underneath. "Your trailer is visible from common areas. That makes it a community standards issue. That's not how county boundaries work." "Sir," the tow driver interrupts, fiddling with the winch. I've already been instructed. I have to take it. My trailer jolts forward a couple of inches. The sound of the chain scraping the pavement hits me harder than the words. That trailer isn't a hobby project. It's my livelihood. Every tool I use on the job is in there, measuring lasers, chisels handed down from my father, the compressor I saved 6 months to replace. Watching it slide away from my driveway feels like watching someone drag off part of me. "Marlene, this is illegal," I say. "Feel free to attend the compliance hearing," she replies. She taps her clipboard with a well-manicured finger. 48 hours. You'll receive notice." She turns toward her SUV like the matter is closed. The tow driver tightens the chain one more notch. Clank, clank. My jaw tightens with it. "Hold up," I say, grabbing the edge of the order. The ink bleeds a little where moisture hit it. The section listing the county code looks familiar, but something is off, an extra letter at the end, a statute number that doesn't exist anymore. This is the wrong code. The tow driver glances back at Marlene. She doesn't answer. She just slides into her SUV, shuts the door with a soft thud, and pulls away. "You're going to want to move back," the driver says, lifting the trailer's hitch with the tow arm. "Safety. Safety. Sure. That's what this is?" I step away, fists tight around the crumpled paper. Coffee steam curls out of my thermos. My breath fogs in the cold. The neighborhood is quiet except for the whine of the hydraulics and a dog barking somewhere down the street. People draw their curtains just enough to watch without being seen. The tow truck inches forward, dragging my trailer toward the street. "You don't get to take what you don't own," I say. Not yelling, just stating it like a fact I need recorded in the air. The driver hesitates for half a second, maybe hearing the anger in my voice, maybe feeling the wrongness of the order he handed me. But duty wins out. He pulls away. As the truck rolls down the street with my entire work life chained behind it, something flutters on the windshield of my truck. A slip of paper catches the breeze. I pull it free. "Compliance hearing, 48 hours," it reads in bold type. No courtesy, no explanation. Just a stamped date and time. I look toward the end of the street where Marlene's SUV disappeared and feel the shift inside me, oppression tightening into something sharper. They didn't just tow my trailer. They planned this. They coordinated it. They wrote up an order with a fake code and pushed it through like I wouldn't know the difference. A neighbor across the street steps out to grab her newspaper. She pretends not to look at me, but I can see the apology in her eyes, the same apology I've seen a dozen times in neighborhoods where HOAs overreach. The kind that says I'm sorry, but I won't get involved. I fold the order, sliding it into my jacket pocket. The paper is cold against my chest. Every part of me wants to chase the tow truck down, demand they release my trailer, make them admit what they did. But that's exactly what they want, an emotional reaction they can write into the file. No, not today. I look back at my empty driveway. The faint tire tracks left by the trailer shine with a thin layer of dew. My tools, my gear, my work gone in less than 5 minutes because someone decided their clipboard gave them power. Fine. If they want to escalate this, I'll escalate right back. I take one long, steady breath and say quietly to myself, 48 hours, then. The clerk at Lot C doesn't even look up when I step inside. He's hunched over a monitor, tapping keys with the bored precision of someone who's done this exact routine 1,000 times. The place smells like cold concrete and motor oil. Outside, a forklift beeps steadily as it drags something heavy across the yard. Without greeting me, he holds up a hand. Name Dalton Pierce. He enters it slowly, squinting at the screen. Your trailer was towed under Order Ref Swan MC71 removal. I feel my chest tighten. Order Ref what? He rotates the screen slightly. Click a line of numbers flashes, followed by a bright red total $480 pending. That's the accrued fees, he says. Daily rate starts at midnight. I didn't authorize a tow. It was an HOA directive. I'm not part of the HOA. He shrugs, like that's not his department. All I can tell you is the order showed up in the system. Came through formal channels. I lean closer. Can I see the documentation? He clicks a few more times and prints a sheet. The printer coughs it out warm and smelling like toner. He slides it across the counter. Tow report. That's all we have on file. I unfold it. The first line catches my attention immediately. Shared sightline violation. My eyebrows pull together. This code doesn't match the statute for my parcel. That's what the HOA submitted. And this order number, MC71 removal. Why does it match the removal order they shoved at me this morning? The clerk lifts both hands as if I'm holding him at gunpoint. Sir, I don't issue these things. I just process them. I take out my phone and snap a photo of the tow report. Then another. Then the screen showing the ref number. The clerk shifts uncomfortably. You're not planning to start anything here, are you? He asks. I'm planning to prove they screwed up. As I turn toward the yard, my phone buzzes. Nina's name lights up the screen. Her timing is unnervingly precise. I saw your text, she says. Send me everything you just photographed. I'm at Lot C, I say. They're already charging me $480. That's intentional. They want you to pay. Payment equals implied consent. Do not authorize a penny. You think this was coordinated? I think they used a jurisdictional loophole that doesn't exist. Send me the photos. I send each one while walking across the lot. My trailer sits fenced in at the far corner, a yellow boot locked on the wheel like a shackle. Sunlight glints off the metal sides. I grip the chain-link fence, feeling the cold press into my fingers. They wrote up a shared sightline violation, I tell her. That's not a county enforceable code, she says. And that order number MC71, it appears in multiple HOA actions this year. They're using it as a generic justification. So they're faking jurisdiction. Exactly. I watch the forklift roll past, its beeping echoing against the steel walls of the storage bays. What do I do about the fees piling up? They become evidence, Nina says. If they charged you illegally, we can recover or neutralize them in the hearing. A hearing I didn't ask for. That's how overreaching HOAs operate. Manufacture compliance, then bill you to prove their own authority. A knot forms in my stomach. The trailer sits behind chain link like it's been arrested. My tools are in there. My inventory. My entire week's schedule. And all of it is now locked behind a keypad code I don't have access to. What's the next move, I ask? I'm pulling county parcel maps now. If your property isn't under HOA governance, and I know for a fact it isn't, then every action they've taken is invalid. We're going to document the missteps one by one. The clerk clears his throat behind me. Sir, I do have to inform you the boot stays until fees are— I heard you, I say without turning. I'm not paying. He stops talking. Nina's voice softens slightly. Dalton, listen. They pushed you into a corner on purpose. They expect you to lash out or cave. I'm not caving. I didn't think you would. Go home. Email me that tow report. I'll compare it with the removal order. Something in their paperwork isn't just sloppy, it's deliberate. And if it's deliberate, then they just handed us the opening we need. I take one last look at the trailer. The yard, noises continue, beep, grind, hum, but everything feels far away. Like I'm standing on the edge of a decision that's bigger than a tow or a fee. Bigger than a trailer. All right, I say. Let's do this your way. That's the only way we win, she replies. I'll call you once I've cross-checked the statutes. I hang up and walk back toward my truck. Just as I open the door, another notification flashes across my screen. An email from the HOA. Subject line, expect additional enforcement. My jaw clenches as I read it. Whatever game they started this morning, they're not finished. Not even close. Nina's office printer starts spitting pages the second I walk in. Whir, click. Whir, click. 12 sheets stack unevenly in the tray, each stamped with the HOA logo in a shade of blue, too official-looking for how sloppy the documents actually are. She picks up the top page and skims it. These citations don't exist, she says. I take the stack from her and flip through it. Every violation summary looks copied, pasted, and repasted from a template. Half the paragraphs repeat. 2 codes contradict each other outright. One is missing a subsection entirely. They really expect this to hold up, I ask. They're not expecting it to hold up, Nina replies. They're expecting you not to know any better. Her assistant steps in with a mug of coffee and sets it on the desk. The wall behind her is a corkboard packed tight with HOA cases, colored string connecting dates, addresses, and board names. I recognize at least 2 other HOAs from nearby counties. Some pages are yellowed from age. Others look freshly printed like mine. Nina pulls a highlighter from her blazer pocket. Let's start here. She marks the code on page 5. This statute hasn't been used since 2019, so they used the wrong code, I say. They used a dead code, she corrects, which means it's invalid by default. I lift the next page. At the bottom, in smaller text, a line reads, Parking Enforcement Expansion, Marlene C. I tap it. She put her name on this. It's not technically a signature, Nina says, but it ties her to the document. That's important. Her assistant pulls up a county statute index on the computer. Nina slides the code sheet beside it. Watch, she says. She reads aloud the line from the HOA sheet, then points at the official county text on the screen. See the difference? 1 digit off. Exactly. Just enough that the average homeowner won't catch it. I let out a breath. All to justify one signed order. Nina looks up at me. Yes. They wanted it on paper to survive a hearing. They didn't expect you to question it. She moves closer to the corkboard and pins the misquoted sheet right next to another case file. This isn't the first HOA to create paperwork that looks real enough to avoid scrutiny but falls apart the second it's examined. I run a hand over my face. So, what's the next step? We build a trail. She grabs a pen and begins circling several dates. They issued a removal order with a false statute. Then they backed it with an in-house violation summary. Tow Lot C processed it because it came through formal channels. Her assistant leans in. Most clerks won't check statute authenticity. They assume the HOA did. Exactly, Nina says. They rely on borrowed authority. The printer kicks on again, spitting out another page, the tow report I photographed earlier. Nina lays it beside the code sheet. Let's align them. See, same fabricated subcode, same enforcement expansion note. Marlene, I say, quietly. Nina nods. She wanted her policy pushed to stick, so she tied enforcement actions to it. Problem is, your parcel isn't under HOA boundaries, which means she exerted authority she doesn't have. The words hit harder now. It's one thing to sense something is wrong, it's another to see it laid out in bold print. She used a fake expansion line to give herself power, I say. Nina hands me a yellow sticky note with a date scribbled on it. This is when the county updated the map. Your parcel was reaffirmed as non-HOA. She couldn't possibly miss that. So she did it intentionally. There's no version where she didn't know. I look over the pages again, crossed out lines, mismatched codes, a signature that isn't a signature but may as well be. The whole pile feels like a trap set out in the open, a paper maze built to confuse anyone who wandered into it. These look official enough to fool someone in a hurry, I say. That's the point, Nina replies. Some rules aren't rules. They're traps. Her assistant returns with a printed parcel map and hands it to Nina. She places it on the desk and points at my property line. Here, this is the nail in the coffin. County confirms no HOA jurisdiction. I feel a shift inside me, not the outrage from this morning, not the helplessness from Lot C, but something steadier. A sense that maybe this entire situation is beginning to turn. So, what now, I ask. Now, Nina says we pull their budget. That pulls me up short. Their budget. She gives a small, sharp smile. Budget irregularities link to this towing directive. If the documents match the pattern I think they do, your trailer might be the least of their problems. The office goes quiet, except for the faint hum of the computer. Outside, a distant siren rises and falls. Nina taps her finger against the misquoted sheet. This isn't sloppy, she says. This is strategy. I look down at the printer-stacked papers, the highlighted lines, the county statute on the screen, and the traces of Marlene's name woven into every page. For the first time today, I feel something close to hope. I set the signed HOA Removal Order Enforcement Directive squarely in the center of the clubhouse table. The paper lands with a flat smack loud enough to cut through the low hum of side conversations. Marlene's face drains of color the moment she recognizes it. That's internal, she starts. It was on my trailer, I say. Nothing internal about that. The mic on the folding stand crackles its loose wire, sparking a faint buzz. The clubhouse smells like burnt coffee and carpet cleaner. Behind Marlene, a poster board reads Parking Enforcement Expansion Community Update, as if this entire evening is supposed to be some polished presentation instead of damage control. A board member sitting near the end of the table quickly nudges a thick HOA binder under his chair with the tip of his shoe when Nina steps inside. She clocks it immediately, but keeps walking, expression unreadable. We'll begin once everyone is seated, Marlene says into the mic, voice sharpening. This isn't an open floor session. I stay standing. I'm not here for a session, I'm here for an explanation. A few residents shift, glancing between us. Some I've seen walking dogs or hauling groceries. All of them look confused why a man who doesn't even live in Meadowbrook is standing inside their clubhouse holding official-looking paperwork. Nina stands beside me and places a second sheet on the table. This is the signature line of the directive, she says. It authorizes towing under a misquoted statute. Marlene snaps, You're misinterpreting the policy. Show me where your authority crosses my property line, I say. You were in violation of community standards, she shoots back. I'm not in your community. Gasps ripple through the room. The board member who hid the binder tightens his grip on the chair arm. Another flips through papers he clearly hasn't read before now. Nina taps the page with her pen. This signature, she says, makes it unlawful enforcement. You knowingly issued an order over a non-HOA parcel. That's not accurate, Marlene says. Her voice wobbles once before she steadies it. We acted in the best interest of Meadowbrook. By towing the property of someone who isn't under your covenants, Nina asks. That trailer obstructed a shared sightline, Marlene replies. That code only applies to HOA-maintained easements, Nina says. And you know that. The room grows heavier. Conversations die mid-breath. Even the buzzing mic seems to settle into the silence. I glance around. Did any of you vote on a towing policy that includes non-members? A murmur spreads quiet at first, then sharper-edged with realization. A man in a fishing hat whispers, We didn't vote on anything. A woman near the back folds her arms and says, We never saw a budget allocation for towing either. The board shifts uncomfortably. Marlene leans toward the mic. Let's be clear. This meeting is not about policy review. It's about updating residents about a necessary enforcement expansion. We're maintaining the safety and appearance of our neighborhood. I hold up the sheet again. Then explain why this order uses a statute that doesn't exist. The board member who hid the binder suddenly rises. Maybe we should move to closed session. Sit down, someone says from the crowd. Every head turns. A man near the front stands up slowly, weathered hands gripping a cane. His voice is calm, but cuts through the tension. Why is our money used on a non-member? Marlene stiffens. This meeting is under board control. That's the problem, the man replies. Nina steps forward. You're all paying for something that was never legal. The directive is invalid. The jurisdiction isn't yours. The fees, the towing the paperwork, they're all evidence now. You have no authority here, Marlene fires back. That's what we're proving, I say. Nina places the HOA binder Marlene's board member tried to hide onto the table. She flips it open, revealing marked pages. Half of these expansions weren't approved by residents, she says. Some have no signatures at all. Others trace back to one person. Eyes lock on Marlene. She reaches for the mic again, hands trembling now. This meeting is over. She turns toward the exit, but two residents step in front of the door blocking it. One shakes his head. No, he says. We're finally seeing the truth. Marlene freezes, caught between authority she's used for years and the crowd that no longer recognizes it. The room grows tight, air buzzing with something electric and irreversible. The mic hisses once like it's exhaling with the rest of us. The clubhouse crowd finally thins, voices dissolving into the night as people step out into the parking lot. The air smells like someone's grilling ribs across the street smoke, drifting lazily over the asphalt. I'm still replaying the confrontation in my head when a resident in a denim jacket jogs toward me holding a binder tight to his chest. Line 14, he says, flipping it open with shaking hands. Unauthorized disbursement tied to towing. Nina takes the binder before I can speak, scanning the page with a lawyer's precision. Her brow tightens. Where did you get this? It was buried under special enforcement projects, the man says. I never noticed it before. Nobody did. Another resident, a woman in a faded red sweater, steps closer. We've been trying to figure out why our fees jumped this quarter. This line doesn't match anything we approved. Nina turns the binder toward me. The highlighted line jumps off the page. Disbursement external tow. Contract authorized by Chair Notation SEP. The initials match the removal order date exactly. Looks like the same day my trailer got taken, I say. And the same day she scheduled that parking expansion meeting nobody was invited to, the woman adds. The streetlight above us flickers, humming as if it's straining to hear the conversation. From behind the row of parked cars, a board member steps forward, someone I'd seen earlier trying not to make eye contact. He glances over his shoulder before speaking. I shouldn't be here, he whispers, but I can't watch this keep happening. Nina softens her voice. You want to tell the truth? Now's the time. He reaches for the binder, flipping back to the budget section. This column, Special Enforcement Projects, used to be empty. Marlene filled it in about 2 months ago. She said it covered administrative improvements, but she never gave the details. Did the board vote on this? Nina asks. He swallows hard. No. She pushed it through herself. I feel something shift again, a cold clarity settling over the frustration I've carried all week. So the towing wasn't enforcement, I say. It was a funded initiative. Yes, he murmurs. And it wasn't the only one. Nina points her pen at the ledger. This is policy manipulation. If funds were reallocated without approval and used to justify towing contracts, this isn't just misconduct. She closes the binder slowly. This is embezzlement. The woman in the red sweater gasps. Our money. For that, Nina nods. If she hid the disbursements under expansion codes, then your dues are paying for actions she doesn't have authority to take. The man in denim looks at me. And you're the proof. They spent HOA money to go after someone outside the HOA. We stand in the narrow glow of the parking lot lights, residents clustered around a binder that suddenly feels heavier than the dozen pages inside it. Cars roll by on the street, their headlights brushing the edges of the conversation like passing flashlights searching for truth. I ask the board member, what else did she approve? He hesitates, then reaches into his jacket and pulls out a folded sheet. This is the internal memo. She didn't think anyone would read it. He hands it to Nina. She opens it, lips thinning as she reads. Special enforcement projects may include towing citations and contracted removal of items deemed obstructive to community appearance. She lowers the page. This language lets her target whatever she wants. I feel anger rising again, steady and sharp, including things she doesn't own. Nina looks at me like she's already 10 steps ahead. We can use this. Unauthorized funds, improper authorization, misquoted statutes, all leading to one action: your tow. The board member rubs his face. She said it was necessary to keep standards high. I didn't know she'd go this far. Did she sign the tow contracts herself? Nina asks. Yes, he whispers, without any vote. The pieces click together in my head like a lock turning. Then we have a trail, I say. A full audit trail. That's exactly what you have, Nina replies. This is how we freeze the entire HOA budget. The woman in red steps closer. Freeze. You can do that if funds are being misused. Nina says a judge can suspend disbursements until an audit is complete. And believe me, after seeing this, any judge will want an audit. The board member looks horrified. Marlene will lose her mind. She already has, Nina says. A car door slams at the far end of the lot. We all turn. Under the yellow street lamp, Marlene steps out of her SUV, posture-rigid expression carved in cold stone. She walks toward us with the confidence of someone who's controlled every room she's ever entered. This conversation isn't authorized, she says. Her voice slices through the night. Nobody moves. Nina closes the binder calmly. We weren't asking for authorization. Marlene's eyes lock onto the budget sheet sticking from the binder's edge. The fear that flashes across her face lasts barely a second, but it's enough. Hand that over, she demands. No, the board member says, surprising himself as much as the rest of us. We have a right to know where the money's going. Marlene steps closer, jaw tight. You're all violating procedure. This ends now. But for once, nobody backs up. The breeze carries the smell of BBQ across the lot, again warm and domestic. Everything her authority isn't. I look her in the eye. When money hides, I say truth follows. The words hang between us like a drawn line across the pavement, unmistakable, undeniable, and finally irreversible. The courtroom monitor chirps twice, beep, beep, as the docket rolls to a new entry. People lean forward on the wooden benches, squinting at the screen. The words appear in a clean blue font: Emergency Motion HOA Budget Freeze filed 9:43 a.m. A ripple of whispering moves through the rows. One resident behind me mutters, "If this passes, everything changes." I can feel it too, something taut in the air stretched thin between fear and relief. Nina pushes open the swinging half door and steps to the counsel table beside me. "Ready?" she asks. "As I'll ever be." She smooths the corner of her notes and glances toward the opposing table. Marlene sits stiff as a fence post counsel, whispering frantically in her ear. Her lips are pressed tight like she's holding in every word she wants to shout. The bailiff calls the room to order. Wooden benches creak as everyone stands. The judge enters, gray hair, crisp glasses, a face that looks carved from 2 decades of seeing through excuses. We sit. Nina clears her throat. "Your Honor, this emergency motion addresses financial misuse by the Meadowbrook Estates HOA. We will show a chain of actions that begins with an unlawful removal order and ends with unauthorized budget disbursements used to justify towing and enforcement measures outside HOA jurisdiction." The judge nods once. "Proceed." The lights dim slightly as Nina taps a remote. A small projector splashes the first slide onto the wall, a photo of the HOA removal order signed directive that had been taped to my trailer. "This is the origin point," she says. "Signed without authority. Applied to a non-member. Enforced through fabricated citations." Marlene's counsel rises. "Objection. Characterization." The judge waves it off. "You'll have your turn." Nina switches slides. Here is the misquoted statute line. The number appears in bright yellow. This code does not exist in county law. HOA leadership cited it to create the appearance of legality. The county's correct statute is here another slide, and it contains no language authorizing HOA enforcement beyond designated parcels. A few residents in the gallery nod, murmuring. Someone whispers, "Knew it." The judge leans forward. "Explain the connection to the budget." Nina moves to the next slide. This is the critical piece, line 14 of the HOA budget flagged by residents last night. The screen fills with a scan of the ledger, Special Enforcement Projects External Tow Contract authorized by Chair. That line, Nina continues, was added without a board vote. According to witness statements, the funds were dispersed directly under the direction of Chairwoman Marlene Corbett. Marlene's attorney jumps up again. "Your Honor, these are internal notes." The judge cuts him off. "Sit down." Nina clicks to the next slide. It shows the date stamped on the ledger. Notice the date. It matches the day the removal order was issued. Funds moved first. Enforcement followed second. I watch Marlene's jaw tighten. Nina takes a slow breath. This is embezzlement by policy manipulation. It does not require theft for personal gain, only that money was taken from its intended use and redirected without proper authority. The room goes dead quiet. The judge turns her eyes to Marlene. "Is this true?" Marlene swallows hard. The board was informed. "No, the board member from last night calls from the benches. We weren't." The judge lifts a hand. "If you speak again without being recognized, I will have you removed." Then she looks back at Marlene. "Did you obtain a board vote?" Marlene exhales through her nose. "It was an administrative adjustment." Nina steps in. "An adjustment that funded towing against someone who isn't in the HOA." The judge turns pages on her desk. "I see documentation establishing Mr. Pierce's parcel as non-HOA in every county record." "That's correct," Nina says. "They spent member funds to take action outside their jurisdiction. Once financial misuse is proven, Your Honor, a freeze is legally permitted to prevent further unauthorized disbursement." The judge folds her hands. "Show me the nexus." Nina taps the remote again. The next slide appears, the towing invoice date, the ledger date, and the removal order signature all aligned by a thin red line. The disbursement enabled the towing. The towing required the fabricated citations. The citations required the misquoted code. And all of it leads back to one signature. She turns toward Marlene, voice steady as a held breath. "Yours." The gallery breaks into hushed, stunned conversation. Someone whispers, "She really did it." Another, "This is unbelievable." The judge raises a hand. "Enough. Quiet." She looks at me. "Mr. Pierce, you wish to speak before I rule. I stand." "Yes, Your Honor." My voice feels strange, steady, grounded in something older than frustration. I didn't come here to tear down an HOA. I came because someone used authority they didn't have to take something they didn't own, and they used other people's money to do it. I glance at the residents behind me. All I want is fairness, a line between power and abuse. A long silence settles over the room. The judge reaches for the pen on her desk. "This court finds sufficient evidence of misused funds and unauthorized enforcement," she says. "Effective immediately." The sound of her pen scratches across the order. The Meadowbrook Estates HOA budget is frozen pending full audit. Gasps rise like a wave behind me. Marlene shoots to her feet. "You crippled us." The judge doesn't even look up. "No. Misuse did." The bailiff retrieves the document and hands it to Nina. She places it in front of me. Freeze. "Order filed 9:43 a.m. stamped across the top in thick black ink. The words feel heavier than the page. Power only works when people stop asking who gave it to you. Today, someone finally asked. The freeze order is taped right across the glass door of the HOA office, four corners bright white paper, the court seal catching the morning light. A small crowd gathers around it, phones out murmuring as they read the stamped line at the top. "Is that real?" a man asks. "It's filed," a woman answers. The court agreed. I step onto the clubhouse porch, the wood planks creaking beneath my boots. Nina is already there, arms crossed, watching residents gather like they're seeing their neighborhood for the first time. A frail, older man near the ramp leans on his cane. His voice is barely above a whisper, but the words carry. Finally. Someone fought back. People turned toward him. Then toward the freeze order again. Then toward Marlene, who stands stiff near the railing as if she can hold the whole scene together by sheer will. Her eyes keep darting between the paper and the people reading it like she's searching for a place where this isn't happening. One resident lifts a phone. "I'm live streaming this," she says. "People deserve to know." Marlene's jaw sets. "Turn that off. You're violating community media guidelines." "No guidelines," another resident says, "not until the freeze is lifted." The air shifts. Power, real or imagined, has left her hands. Nina steps beside me. "Let them take it," she murmurs. And they do. A man in a baseball cap points at the freeze order. "So this means the court stopped all spending?" "Yes," Nina replies loud enough for everyone to hear. "Until an audit confirms how funds were used." A woman pushes forward. "Then we want answers. Right now." Marlene tries to smile, lips trembling. "There's a proper venue for these conversations." "You had your venue," someone says. "This is ours." The clubhouse porch grows crowded, phone cameras, raised voices, steady, not shouting but sharper than any protest. I stay near the back, giving space for what needs to happen. The woman with the live stream moves closer. "Where did our dues go?" Marlene straightens her blazer. All expenditures were necessary for community standards. Which standards, the older man asks. "The ones you invented," a board member, one of the quiet ones from earlier steps forward. He looks exhausted. "We didn't vote on towing contracts," he says. "We didn't vote on expansion codes. We didn't vote on special enforcement projects." All eyes swing to him. "You never gave us the chance," he says. A murmur runs through the porch, heavier this time. Someone lifts the binder they brought from last night's meeting. "You wrote these entries," the resident says. "We saw your initials." Marlene's voice cracks. "I acted in the best interest." "No," another interrupts. "You acted alone." Nina steps slightly forward, not leading, just present. "Accountability isn't punishment," she says quietly. "It's clarity." Residents nod. A middle-aged man clears his throat. "We want a board vote, a real one." Silence falls. Another resident, holding his phone like a gavel, says, "I motion for a no-confidence vote in Chairwoman Marlene Corbett." The air tightens. People look around, checking faces, waiting for someone to object. Nobody does. "I second," a woman says. Marlene's eyes widen. "This isn't a sanctioned session." "That's the fourth time you've said that today," someone replies. "You lost the right to sanction anything." The board gathers near the porch railing, 3 members huddling, whispering. One steps forward. "We vote here," he says. "Now." A hand goes up, then another, then dozens. I don't move. This isn't my vote, it's theirs. Finally, the silent board member from last night raises his hand too. No confidence in Marlene Corbett. The porch erupts, not in cheers, not in anger, but in something quieter. Relief. Release. Justice settling like dust after a long storm. Marlene's breath stutters. She turns her back to the group, gripping the railing like she needs something solid to hold on to. For the first time, she looks small. I step forward, but only enough for her to hear. "Justice doesn't shout," I say. It reveals. Her shoulders dip. She doesn't answer. Nina touches my arm. "Come on," she says softly. "You've done your part." But before we can step down the porch steps, a tow truck pulls into my driveway across the street. It moves slowly, almost respectfully, stopping with a soft hiss of air brakes. The same trailer they'd taken dust, still clinging to the wheels from Lot C, sits hitched behind it. Residents turn to watch. The live stream swings toward the road as the driver lowers the trailer gently onto my gravel. He unhooks the chain, wipes his hands, walks up to me without meeting my eyes. My instructions, he says, were to return it. No charge, from who I ask. He jerks his chin toward the porch. Board asked for it. Said it was overdue. I nod once. Thank you. He leaves without another word. The trailer sits there quiet, solid, unbroken. A symbol of everything they tried to take and everything they failed to understand. Behind me, the older man speaks again. Feels lighter now, he says. This whole place. People exhale together. Not cheering, not celebrating. Just breathing for the first time in weeks. I walk toward the driveway, running my hand along the dusty wheel well. The metal is warm under the sun. Familiar. Right. Nina stands beside me. You okay? Yeah, I say. I think I am. Behind us, the residents keep talking about transparency, about voting, about what comes next. They don't need me for that part. They're finding their own voice now. Justice came quietly. Healing follows. The new bulletin board stands just outside the clubhouse doors, the wood still fresh, the cork clean and unscarred. At the top, pinned straight and centered, is a single white sheet with bold black letters. Transparent HOA starts here. A small crowd gathers reading it like it's the first honest announcement this place has ever posted. A couple of kids ride past on bikes, weaving between parked cars, their laughter mixing with the late afternoon breeze. Nina walks beside me, hands in her pockets. You didn't just win, she says. You set a precedent. I let the words sit for a moment. I'm not used to thinking of any of this as a win. Mostly it just felt necessary. But, seeing that bulletin board, it's hard to deny something changed. Two residents break from the small group and walk toward us. The man in the denim jacket gives an awkward smile. Board asked us to bring this to you, he says. He hands me an envelope, official letterhead stamped that morning. I open it and read the first line. We acknowledge our failures and commit to full financial transparency moving forward. The second paragraph thanks me. Not my favorite part, but sincere enough. The third outlines reforms, budget votes, public ledger's resident approval for enforcement policies, and a direct apology for the towing incident. It's signed by every member of the new board. The woman beside him nods once. We're trying to fix this, properly. I can see that I say. They both exhale relieved before heading back toward the porch where people are still pinning questions and proposals to the bulletin board. I walk toward my driveway, Nina trailing behind. The sunlight is low now, a warm line along the gravel. My trailer sits exactly where it belongs, level sturdy back home. Dust still clings to the wheel wells from Lot C, but it feels right, grounded. I run my hand along the aluminum siding. Home restored, I say under my breath. Nina smiles. You kept the boundary. They're just learning how to respect it. I unlatch the tool bench near the fence and swing it open. Every tool is where I left it before this whole mess began, wrenches lined in size order sockets sorted in their trays, the old hammer my dad gave me resting in its worn slot. Sunlight hits the metal edges, making the whole bench glow for a second. You going back to work? Nina asks. First time in a week, I felt like I can. She leans against the fence post, arms crossed. Funny thing about justice, she says. People expect fireworks, but most of the time it's quieter than that. I nod. Yeah. More like breathing again. A car pulls into the cul-de-sac. The board member who once hid the binder steps out holding a cardboard box. He walks over, setting it gently on the driveway. These are the last of the documents, he says. Everything, from Marlene's old office. We thought you should have copies for your records. Sure, I say. Thank you. He hesitates. For what it's worth. I'm sorry I didn't speak up sooner. You did when it counted, I reply. He nods, relieved, and heads back toward the clubhouse. Nina watches him go. Takes people time to figure out who they are when no one's telling them. Or when someone's been telling them too much, I add. The breeze picks up, carrying the smell of someone grilling burgers down the street. A couple of kids race past again on their bikes, one shouting, Mom said the HOA can't take Mr. Pierce's trailer anymore. The other laughs so hard he nearly tips over. Nina shakes her head, smiling. Kids always get to the point. I tighten a bolt on the trailer hitch, checking the tension. The metal clicks into place with a satisfying snap. My truck sits parked a few feet away, engine cold, but ready. I glance toward the cab, then toward Nina. "You think they'll hold the line I ask?" "They will now," she says. "You showed them how." I close the tool bench and lock it. The latch settles with a clean metallic sound. Nina steps off the driveway. "I'll check in next week. Just paperwork to finalize. After that, you're free of this whole circus." "I appreciate it," I say. She pauses. "Dalton." "Yeah, you did good." I watch her walk toward her car, the sun catching her hair in streaks of orange. She waves once before driving away. The porch across the street fills with more residents, people posting questions, offering ideas, reading the freeze order like it's a citizen's guide. Their voices drift across the road, not angry anymore, not afraid, just certain. I climb into my truck, slide the key into the ignition, and turn it. The engine grumbles for a second before settling into a steady idle, the kind that tells you the machine's ready to work. I look at the trailer in the side mirror, solid, right where it should be. Everything feels aligned again. Not perfect, but honest. I pull in a breath, rest my hand on the wheel, and whisper the truth I finally understand, words meant for myself, for my father, for anyone who's ever had to guard what's theirs. A boundary held is a community protected. The engine hums in agreement. And, for the first time in a long time, the road ahead feels open. The posted freeze order still hangs on the clubhouse door. Its court seal catching the late light as my trailer sits steady behind the gate, finally back where it belongs. Residents gather under the flagpole, reading the notice as if it marks a line none of us will let be crossed again. Justice isn't loud. It's steady, and it showed itself the moment people demanded to see how power was being used. Standing there, I realized boundaries aren't about keeping others out, they're about reminding a community what it must protect together. And if someone else faces this kind of pressure, I hope they remember they're not standing alone anymore. Finally, someone fought back.